Imagine a little girl playing in a castle garden. She has no idea that one day she will be queen. Her name is Lilibet and her life is about to change forever. This is her story, the story of Queen Elizabeth II. Let's begin. Elizabeth was born in London on April 21st, 1926. Her family called her Lilibet because she couldn't say Elizabeth. She was a cute little girl with curly hair and bright blue eyes. Her parents were the Duke and Duchess of York. They were not the king and queen. Not yet. Lilibet lived in a big house with a beautiful garden. She loved to run and play with her sister Margaret. Margaret was 4 years younger, and the two girls were best friends. Lilibet loved animals very much. She had a special dog, a corgi, named Dookie. Corgis are small dogs with short legs and big ears. Lilibet took Dookie everywhere. She even fed him by hand. She also loved horses and learned to ride when she was very young. Every week, she had riding lessons, and she was very good at it. Her father taught her to love the outdoors and nature. They went for walks in the woods and fed the ducks in the pond. Life was simple and peaceful for little Lilibet. She had no idea what the future would bring. Lilibet and Margaret were educated at home. They did not go to school like other children. A special teacher came to their house to teach them. They learned history and geography and French. Lilibet loved history, especially stories about kings and queens. She also loved music and learned to play the piano. She was a very good student, always serious and hardworking. Margaret was more playful and loved to sing and dance. The two sisters were very different, but they loved each other deeply. They spent many happy hours playing together in their big house. They put on plays for their parents and sang songs. They had a happy childhood, full of love and laughter. The girls had a special place called Royal Lodge. It was a small house in the middle of a big forest. There they could be free, away from the formal life of the palace. They had a vegetable garden and grew their own food. They picked flowers and made bouquets for their mother. They had a tree house and a swing in the garden. They loved to invite their cousins to play with them. They played hide and seek and ran through the woods. Those were the happiest days of their childhood. Little did Lilibet know that soon everything would change. When Lilibet was 10 years old, something very important happened. Her grandfather, King George V, was very old and sick. He was the King of England, and he was loved by the people. But his health was getting worse, and everyone was worried. Lilibet's uncle David was the oldest son and the next king. David was very different from his father. He loved parties and glamour. He was not interested in being king, and he did not have a wife. Everyone hoped he would find a good queen to help him rule. But David fell in love with a woman named Wallis Simpson. Wallis was from America, and she was divorced from her first husband. In those days, the King of England could not marry a divorced woman. The church and the government were strongly against it. They said the king cannot marry her. It is not allowed. David had a very difficult choice to make. He could give up Wallis and be king, or he could give up the throne and marry the woman he loved. David thought long and hard about his decision. He loved Wallis very much, and he could not imagine life without her. So he made a historic decision that shocked the whole world. He said, "I cannot be king without the woman I love." He gave up the throne for love. It was a very romantic story, but it was also a crisis for the royal family and for the country. England needed a king, and now there was no one to be king. So Lilibet's father became king overnight. His name was King George VI, and he was a shy man. He did not want to be king. He never expected to be king, but he accepted his duty for the sake of his country. This event changed Lilibet's life forever. She was now not just a princess. She was the heir to the throne. One day, she would be Queen of England. Her father told her, "Lilibet, one day you will be queen." She was only 10 years old, and she did not fully understand. But she looked at her father with serious eyes and nodded. She knew that her life would never be the same. She had a new responsibility, a duty to her country. From that day on, she studied harder and prepared for her future. She learned about government and history and the Constitution. She was being trained to be a queen. Soon after her father became king, World War II started. It was a terrible war that affected the whole world. Germany, led by Hitler, wanted to control Europe. England was at war with Germany and fighting for freedom. The war was very scary, especially for children. Bombs fell on London every night. For many months, people were terrified, and many children were sent to the countryside. But the royal family decided to stay in London. They wanted to show courage and support the people. The king and queen refused to leave the city. Queen Elizabeth, Lilibet's mother, said a famous thing. She said, "The children will not leave unless I leave. I will not leave unless the king leaves, and the king will never leave." This showed their bravery and their love for their country. The family stayed in Buckingham Palace, even when bombs fell nearby. One time, a bomb actually fell in the palace garden, but they were safe, and they continued to do their duty. Lilibet was only 13 when the war began. But she wanted to help. Like everyone else. In 1940, she gave her first radio speech. She spoke to the children who had been sent away from their homes. Her voice was young, but her words were strong. She said, "We are trying to do all we can to help our brave sailors, soldiers, and airmen." She also said, "We know every one of you is doing your bit." This speech gave hope to millions of children who were scared and lonely. It showed that even a young princess cared about them. Lilibet was growing up and becoming a leader. As she got older, Lilibet wanted to do more. When she was 18, she joined the army. She became a driver and a mechanic in the Women's Auxiliary Territorial Service. She learned to drive trucks and vans and even ambulances. She learned to fix engines and change tires and check oil. She worked hard, just like any other woman in the service. She wore a uniform and lived in a camp with other women. This experience changed her completely. She understood the struggles of ordinary people. She was not just a princess in a palace. She was one of them. She worked with her hands and got dirty and made friends. This made her a better person and prepared her for her future role. During the war, Lilibet fell in love. She met a handsome young man named Philip. Philip was a prince from Greece and Denmark, but he had no money and no country because his family had lost everything. He was tall and blonde and very good-looking. Lilibet first met him when she was just 13. She saw him at a family wedding, and she thought he was wonderful. She kept a picture of him in her room and wrote him letters. For years, they wrote to each other and fell in love through their letters. Philip was in the Navy, fighting in the war. He was brave and strong and a true hero. He served on battleships and saw terrible things, but he always thought of Lilibet and wrote to her whenever he could. When the war ended, Philip came back to England. He visited Lilibet at the palace, and their love grew stronger. They spent time together, walking in the gardens and talking for hours. Everyone could see they were deeply in love. But there was a problem. Philip was not British, and he had no money and no home. Some people in the palace did not think he was good enough for the princess. They wanted Lilibet to marry a rich, powerful British aristocrat. But Lilibet did not care about money or power. She loved Philip, and she wanted to marry him. Her father, the king, gave his permission because he saw how happy she was. Philip also had to make a sacrifice. He gave up his Greek and Danish titles to marry Lilibet. He became a British citizen and took the name Philip Mountbatten. He also promised to be loyal and faithful to the Queen. He loved Lilibet so much that he gave up everything for her. Their love story is one of the most romantic stories of the 20th century. They got married in 1947 at Westminster Abbey. It was a beautiful wedding. After the dark years of the war, the country needed something to celebrate. And this was perfect. Thousands of people lined the streets to see the bride and groom. Lilibet wore a stunning wedding dress made of silk, covered in flowers. It was designed by Norman Hartnell, a famous British designer. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale. Philip wore his naval uniform and looked very handsome. They were so happy and in love, and everyone could see it. They had their wedding cake, which was 9 feet tall. It was a magnificent cake, made with ingredients sent from around the world. After the wedding, they went to Broadlands for their honeymoon. It was the beginning of a long and happy marriage. In 1952, Elizabeth and Philip went on a big trip. They traveled to Africa, representing the king. First they went to Kenya, a beautiful country in Africa. They stayed at a famous hotel called Treetops. It was built in the branches of a giant fig tree. From there, they could see wild animals coming to drink water. They saw elephants and rhinos and monkeys and many birds. It was an amazing experience, and they loved every moment. Elizabeth wrote in her diary about the wonderful animals she saw while they were at Treetops. Something terrible happened. A message arrived from England with very bad news. Elizabeth's father, King George VI, had died. He had been sick for some time, but his death was sudden and unexpected. He was only 56 years old, and he loved his family very much. Elizabeth was heartbroken when she heard the news. She loved her father more than anything, and she was devastated. But she was now Queen of England. She was only 25 years old, and she had a huge responsibility. She had to return to London immediately to take up her new role. When she came down from Treetops, she was no longer a princess. She was the queen, and everyone had to bow to her. She later said, "It was all rather strange being a queen at 25. Her life changed in an instant, from a happy wife to a grieving queen." The story of her becoming queen is a famous one. It is said that she went up into the tree as a princess and came down as a queen. She flew back to London in sorrow and in shock. Her grandmother, Queen Mary, wrote her a beautiful letter. She said, "Your old gran, who loves you very much, is thinking of you." The letter gave Elizabeth strength in her time of grief. She knew she had a duty to her country, and she would not fail. She had to be strong for her family and for her people. Elizabeth's coronation was on June 2, 1953. A coronation is a special ceremony where a new king or queen is crowned. It is a very old tradition, full of history and symbolism. Elizabeth's coronation was held at Westminster Abbey, the same church where she had been married just a few years before. It was a magnificent event, full of color and music and pageantry. Elizabeth wore a beautiful gown made of white silk, embroidered with flowers. For the first time in history, the coronation was on television. Millions of people all over the world watched it live. They saw the young queen walk down the aisle with dignity and grace. They saw her sit on the ancient coronation chair, which is over 700 years old. They saw the Archbishop of Canterbury place the crown on her head. The crown was St. Edward's crown. It is very heavy, almost 5 pounds. But Elizabeth sat perfectly still for over 3 hours. She showed no sign of tiredness or discomfort at all. She was calm and composed and completely in control. After the crown, she was given other symbols of royalty. The orb, representing the world under the Christian faith. The scepter, representing power and justice. The ring, representing her marriage to the nation. And finally, she took Holy Communion as the spiritual leader of the Church of England. It was a deeply religious ceremony, and Elizabeth took it very seriously. She promised to serve her people for her whole life. She promised to be a good queen and to follow God's will, and she kept that promise for 70 years. After the ceremony, she appeared on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. She waved to the huge crowds who had waited for hours to see her. They cheered and waved flags and sang "God Save the Queen." Elizabeth smiled and looked so happy and so beautiful. It was the beginning of a new Elizabethan age. The people had a new queen, and they loved her. Being queen is not an easy job. It is a lot of hard work. Elizabeth worked every day for her entire life. She woke up early and started work at 9:30 in the morning. First, she read the newspapers and important government papers. Every day, she received a red leather box from the government. Inside were documents that needed her signature and approval. She had to read everything carefully and understand it all. She met with the Prime Minister every week for a private meeting. They discussed important matters of state in complete secrecy. She never revealed what they talked about, and she never gave her own opinion publicly. She also met with foreign ambassadors and heads of state. She welcomed them to the palace and entertained them. She traveled all over the world, representing Britain. She visited over 120 countries. During her reign, she was the most traveled monarch in British history. She shook hands with thousands of people. Everywhere she went, she always smiled and always looked elegant and interested. She never complained, even when she was tired or unwell. She also carried out many official duties. In Britain, she opened new hospitals and schools and factories. She attended ceremonies and gave speeches and awarded honors. She also hosted garden parties. At Buckingham Palace, thousands of people came to meet the Queen in her own garden. They drank tea and ate sandwiches and walked on the grass. It was a great honor to be invited to the Queen's garden party. Elizabeth was also the head of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is a group of 54 countries, mostly former British colonies. They work together for peace and development around the world. Elizabeth loved the Commonwealth and worked hard to keep it together. She traveled to every Commonwealth country many times over. She was a symbol of unity and friendship for millions of people. Through all this, she remained calm and professional. She never showed her emotions in public. She always did her duty without complaint. She was an example of dedication and service to everyone. People admired her for her strength and her commitment. She was truly a remarkable woman. Elizabeth and Philip had 4 children. Their first child, Charles, was born in 1948. Then Anne, in 1950. Then Andrew, in 1960. And finally Edward, in 1964. Elizabeth loved her children very deeply. But being queen was a very demanding job. She had to travel and work and could not always be with them. Sometimes this was difficult for her and for the children. She always wrote them letters and called them every day. She did her best to be a good mother while also being a good queen. Philip was a great support to her throughout their marriage. He was always by her side at official events and in private life. He was known for his sharp wit and his outspoken comments. He also worked hard for many charities and organizations. He was especially interested in young people and the environment. He started the Duke of Edinburgh's Award to help young people develop skills. Millions of young people have taken part in this program. Elizabeth also loved her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She had 8 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. She loved spending time with them. At Balmoral Castle in Scotland, there she could relax and be a normal grandmother. She taught them to ride horses and to love the outdoors. They called her Gon, and they loved her very much. In her private life, Elizabeth loved simple pleasures. She loved walking in the countryside with her dogs. She loved riding her horses whenever she could. She loved reading, especially mysteries and thrillers. She also loved watching television, especially the comedy series The Vicar of Dibley. She had a great sense of humor and loved to laugh. At Balmoral, She loved having barbecues with her family. She would cook the sausages and burgers herself. She was, after all, a grandmother, as well as a queen. The royal family has faced many difficult times. The press and the public have often been critical. In 1992, which the Queen called her Annus Horribilis, or horrible year, 3 of her children's marriages ended in divorce. Charles and Diana separated. Andrew and Sarah divorced. And divorced. It was a very sad time for the family. The same year, a huge fire destroyed part of Windsor Castle. It was a terrible tragedy, and it cost millions to repair. The Queen was very upset by all these events. The death of Princess Diana in 1997 was another difficult time. Diana was the ex-wife of Charles and the mother of William and Harry. She was very popular with the public, and her death shocked the world. The Queen was criticized for not reacting quickly enough, but she finally spoke to the nation. On television, she paid tribute to Diana and expressed her grief. It was a difficult moment for the monarchy, but they got through it. Later, there were problems with Prince Andrew and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. This caused a lot of bad publicity for the royal family. Andrew had to step back from public life, and there were problems with Prince Harry and Meghan. They decided to leave the royal family and move to America. They gave interviews criticizing the family, which was very painful. The Queen loved Harry very much and was sad to see him go. But she always said, "The royal family is my family, and I love them all." Despite all these problems, she remained calm and dignified. She always put her duty before her personal feelings. That is what made her such a great queen. In 2015, Elizabeth became the longest-reigning British monarch. She passed her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. Victoria reigned for 63 years, and Elizabeth reigned for 70 years. It is an incredible achievement to be queen for so long. In 2022, she celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, 70 years on the throne. There were huge celebrations all over the country. People lined the streets and waved flags and sang songs. They thanked the Queen for her lifetime of service. Elizabeth appeared on the balcony many times, smiling and waving. She looked happy and grateful for the love of her people. On September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II passed away. She died peacefully at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. She was 96 years old and had been queen for over 70 years. Her family was with her, including Charles and Anne. The news of her death saddened the whole world. People left flowers outside Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. They cried and remembered her with love and gratitude. Her funeral was held at Westminster Abbey. Leaders from all over the world came to pay their respects. Millions of people watched the funeral on television. It was a very beautiful and emotional ceremony. After the service, she was buried at Windsor Castle. She was laid to rest next to her beloved husband Philip, and next to her parents and her sister Margaret. Her long and remarkable life had come to an end. Her son Charles became king immediately. He is now King Charles III. He said in a speech, "Her Majesty's was a life well lived." And it truly was. A life of duty, service, and love. Queen Elizabeth II will be remembered for generations to come. She was a symbol of stability and continuity in a changing world. She was an inspiration to millions of people everywhere, and her story will continue to be told. What can we learn from the life of Queen Elizabeth? We learn about duty, doing what is right, even when it is hard. We learn about service, putting others before yourself. We learn about courage, facing difficult times with strength. We learn about love, loving your family and your country. We learn about commitment, keeping your promises for a lifetime. Elizabeth did all of these things every single day for 70 years. She was a great queen and a remarkable human being. Her story is an inspiration to us all. You have just learned about her life in English. You have practiced your listening and learned new words. You have heard a story of history and love and duty. This is a great way to improve your English. Listening to stories helps you understand how English is really spoken. Keep practicing, and you will become fluent if you enjoyed this story. Please hit the like button. It helps more people find our videos. And share this video with a friend who is learning English. They will love it and learn too. Also subscribe to our channel. Our channel name is StoryNest English Academy. Click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We have many more stories for you to enjoy. Thank you for watching and happy learning. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.